This is the site of Babbitt, Nevada, a ghost town from the World War II years. This area was the largest housing development for what is today the world's largest ammunition depot. Babbitt was founded in 1941, and thousands of people lived out here, workers and their families, and Babbitt became a veritable community in and of itself. So join me on this episode as we take a walk through this large, interesting site, and we'll see what remains of this disappeared development from the Second World War, here on the Reno You Know. The town of Babbitt was situated directly between the Hawthorne Naval Ammunition Depot's administration complex and the town of Hawthorne, Nevada, which is located about a 2.5-hour drive south of Reno. And I've been to or through Hawthorne a number of times over the years, and I've never been aware of the town site of Babbitt until just a couple of days ago when I just kind of accidentally discovered it online doing some other work. And so I started to research it. What today is known as the Hawthorne Army Depot began as the Hawthorne Naval Ammunition Depot in 1928 as the result of a disaster back east. In 1926, a Navy weapons depot in New Jersey was almost completely destroyed due to an accident. 21 people died, 53 were wounded, and the Navy lost $84 million, which is in excess of $1 billion today. In 1928, Congress created a body that would oversee storage conditions of explosives, and a recommendation was made to create a depot to serve the western U.S. that was located in a remote area that was within 1,000 miles of the Pacific coast. Construction began in 1928, and the Naval Ammunition Depot opened in 1930. The busiest years here were during World War II, when more than 5,000 people were employed here when this was the staging area for ammunition and bombs for the war effort. And housing needed to be provided for all these folks, so a town was created for them, and it was named in honor of Captain H.S. Babbitt, who was the Inspector of Ordnance here at the Hawthorne Depot. Babbitt started in 1941 with 25 duplex units on a single block. More than 400 more duplexes were added in 1942 and 1943, and by the end of World War II, Babbitt consisted of 40 blocks and 584 duplexes. The names of the streets that ran east to west were named after aircraft carriers. Some of those names were Yorktown, Enterprise, Essex, Lexington, Wasp, Ranger, Saratoga, and Hornet Avenues. The north-south streets were numbered. This is the site of Seabee Park, S-E-A-B-E-E, a naval term, I believe. And this was the community park right here next to the highway. And there used to be grass here and playground equipment and a fountain, and I'm sure barbecues. I'll put a photograph of the park up in its before state here on the video. And once the park was taken out, and of course the community was taken out, if you're not familiar with Nevada or the desert will reclaim itself. Hey folks, if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, I'd like to encourage you to please click that subscribe button. Growing this channel simply means better content for you down the road. And I have a new goal. I like to always be working towards something. I would like to get to 100,000 subscribers. I don't know how many years it'll take, but if everyone watching this video would click that little subscribe button, I might be able to cut that time frame down just a little bit. So if you're enjoying this content, please help me help you. Click the subscribe button and also the like button on the video. Thank you. This area here behind what was Seabee Park was pretty much the nucleus of the community. On these vacant pads now, on the left here was a drugstore, and the red pad was the main grocery store. And then on the far right of the grocery store was was the post office. This is on the drugstore pad, and there's this separate area where you can still see the remains of the tile work. I'm guessing that was probably the pharmacy itself, and of course everything out front here was other stuff that you can buy the same way they do it in today's drugstores. This is where the post office was, and in the old photos you can see the support posts that lined the front of the building. Well, it looks like the supports for the support posts are still here as well. So let's go check our mail. You can really get a feel that this was a community here. The sidewalks are still here, and you can just imagine all the housing units here, and there's even a line of fire hydrants. Now I checked the date on the fire hydrants. They're modern, but they probably needed to be replaced at some point. I'm sure hydrants from the 1940s would have deteriorated long ago. But yeah, this was just socked in, lots of tall trees, and hundreds of duplexes. The second to the last building to remain standing in Babbitt was the bowling alley. And the building had two sets of lanes in two separate wings. And I believe the bowling alley operated up until the 1990s. And I found a couple of photos online of what it looked like before it was taken down. And here's what it looked like on my visit just a couple of days ago. You can still see the areas for the two sets of lanes. It's kind of an eerie feeling walking through these old neighborhoods in a good way. And I just think about all the thousands of people that lived out here and elected to spend several years of their lives here in the desert supplying the guys overseas. And I'll say it, these guys and gals were as heroes as much as the guys fighting on the front lines. These folks provided the munitions across the pond to our fighting units in World War II and Korea and Vietnam, and I'm sure other conflicts. And I'm sure there might have been other depots across the country, but this was one of the big ones. So this was the old elementary school, is this correct?
This was the elementary school for this whole big open space of military.
Nice.
I'm not 100% sure, but I believe the junior high and high school kids went up to the Hawthorne Mineral County schools in Hawthorne.
Okay.
But this is the last real building from here.
From Babbitt.
Yeah.
So this would be one of the typical lots here in Babbitt, right? So the duplex would be set in here in this walkway?
Yeah.
We go up to a side door, it looks like.
Well, the main entrance was on the long side in the center.
Okay, gotcha.
And so this would walk up to probably two different front doors. You stepped up on the porch, you go, somebody in Unit A or somebody in Unit B.
I see.
However they were numbered, I don't know, but...
Well, if you look on down, there's just a long line down this old street of those walkways, and these streets used to be tree lined.
That's correct.
That I could see from the old photographs. What happened to the trees? Do you know?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
They're all gone. Maybe they took them out because they knew they wouldn't be watered. I don't know.
That's very possible.
Yeah, no one needs long lines of dead trees. So do you know what the future plans for this, are there any future plans for this whole huge area?
Well, this whole area is now county property.
Is it? Okay.
And so it's been sold off, like the RV park up here.
Okay.
Woody Isom bought all of that land, set up the RV park. I believe this area out here is supposed to be the fishing pond that's going to go in.
A fishing pond, really?
That's what I heard.
I think this is just a supremely historic area because it was during World War II when this area peaked. Are there any historical protections that you are aware of for this whole area?
Not that I'm aware of. Not for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, it's
probably for a lot of the buildings on the base.
Yeah.
But as far as the land out here, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, county property, I guess it could be subject to sale and development.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm just glad I was able to document this before any of that happened. Babbitt's housing peaked in 1954. And after the close of the Korean conflict, a series of reductions were initiated, and parts of Babbitt were closed off, and buildings started to be sold off and otherwise moved away. By 1970, about 300 of those duplexes had been removed and carted off. And there was further shrinkage in the 1970s and the 1980s. And by 1987, the last of the residents of Babbitt, Nevada had moved away. Here's something that must have dealt with water lines or maybe sewer lines. And I am not crawling down there, but if I wanted to, there's a ladder and a bunch of old piping. There exists a map of where everything was in Babbitt, and you can see where all the streets were and the location and names of the different buildings. And this pad right here was the community tennis courts and basketball courts. We can probably see here where a basketball hoop might have been installed. And is there another one on the other side? Yes, there is. So yeah, this was probably one of the basketball courts. So there's hoops on each end. And if these were indeed tennis courts, there should be evidence of a net right in the center. And it looks like I've got a post here where one side of the net would have been installed. And then over here by this tree, which is now growing up through the courts, looks like over here is another support for the tennis net.
Okay, this is an example of one of the houses that was down in the old town of Babbitt.
Okay.
These were built as dependence quarters for some of the 6,000 sailors and 300 Marines that were stationed here.
Cool.
what they were, they're duplexes. And so while this is the front door here, it wasn't necessarily, there's two doors in the middle.
Okay.
That go to the left and right hand side of the duplex. And then you had your great room, the kitchen was at this end, and a bedroom at this end, and another bedroom just off the living room with a bathroom. And but because these were built the way they were built, you can gut the inside and change the whole thing around.
All right, thanks for hanging out with me on this episode. I sure appreciate your company, and I hope you enjoyed learning about Babbitt, Nevada as much as I did. And I am finishing up this episode today at the Flowing Tide Pub in Northwest Reno. The Flowing Tide is a chain of several stores. There's some here in Reno and then some in Las Vegas. And I believe the Flowing Tide has been around since the mid-1990s, if memory serves. And I am enjoying today a North Coast Scrimshaw Pilsner. North Coast Brewing is in Fort Bragg, California. I've been to that brew house several times, and it's always a good time. And I am finishing off this episode the day before Memorial Day. So if you're a veteran, I sure appreciate your service. And as Harold S. Smith Sr. of Harold's Club always said, I'm with you. Cheers.